Hello MotoGP enthusiasts. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Pirelli is entering MotoGP's next technical chapter with a concentrated development push. 2 tire batches have already been distributed to manufacturers, private tests have generated extensive feedback, and a limited group of full-time riders will get the first official on-track exposure at Brno in 11 days. The outcome of these early sessions will shape bike development, influence rider preparation for 2027 and determine which teams gain the earliest advantage when the Italian supplier replaces Michelin. KTM racing director Pit Beirer praised Pedro Acosta's Balaton performance, saying the young Spaniard's weekend, and his ability to match Marc Márquez for pace and composure, deserves full recognition. Beirer highlighted Acosta's consistency from practice through qualifying and his maturity in race duels, framing the result as evidence of the rider's rapid development and growing status within KTM. Tech3 team principal Günther Steiner has publicly opposed the proposed one-bike-per-rider rule for 2027, arguing the measure delivers negligible cost savings while eroding the on-track drama that attracts fans. Steiner says the change would create logistical headaches for teams, threaten iconic moments such as flag-to-flag bike swaps, and ultimately diminish the championship's value as a showcase for manufacturers. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Pirelli will hand full-time MotoGP riders their first official opportunity to test the 2027 tire range at the upcoming Brno session, scheduled 11 days from now. Only a small group of contracted riders are currently eligible to take part: Marco Bezzecchi, Toprak Razgatlioglu, Diogo Moreira, Fermin Aldeguer, and Marc Márquez. KTM and some other manufacturers may rely on test riders for additional mileage. We will use the 3 tests available this year to develop the tires we supply. Pirelli began deliveries in October 2025 with an initial batch of tires and followed up with a second, evolved batch at the end of April 2026. Each manufacturer reportedly received around 70 units per batch, which teams have used extensively during private tests and development runs. Pirelli describes the deliveries as containing a variety of carcasses and compounds to explore different performance envelopes. We began with what we know how to do, the highest performing, the softest. But there are different carcasses and compounds. Pirelli's development focus is twofold: find carcass constructions that suit the new 850 cubic centimeters prototypes, and create a compound range that balances grip, warm-up speed, and rider confidence. The company says its strengths lie in immediate feel and quick warm-up, attributes it aims to preserve while adapting to MotoGP's changing technical landscape. We know Pirelli racing tires well. Their strong points are grip, quick warm-up, and the confidence they immediately transmit to the rider. Pirelli stresses the importance of feedback from top riders, noting that experienced testers such as Marquez will naturally attract attention from engineers. However, the company rejects the idea of tailoring a tire to a single rider's style, insisting on balanced solutions that suit the wider field. Private tests with test riders and select contracted racers have already provided valuable data. The riders who are capable of giving us more information will receive attention. But we are not going to make a Marquez tire. Manufacturers that secure early Pirelli test time, and riders who log significant laps on the new rubber, can influence bike development as much as tire evolution. Pirelli and team engineers both view early private mileage as a competitive asset. Riders who test extensively will arrive at the 2027 season with a head start in tire understanding and bike setup. If I test the Pirelli earlier, I can influence the development of the bike, not the tire. It is a great advantage. Pirelli expresses concern about the churn in the rider market, and the risk that some riders will reach the final Valencia test without any prior Pirelli laps. That scenario could leave late movers at a disadvantage, having to learn both bike and tire characteristics simultaneously. Pirelli warns teams and riders that missing early tests will complicate preparation for the new era. I would not like any rider to arrive at the Valencia test on December 1st without having tested the Pirellis. What is he going to test then? Pirelli's phased tire deliveries and the imminent Brno test mark a decisive stage in the switch from Michelin to the Italian supplier for 2027. The combination of multiple carcasses, evolving compounds and targeted rider feedback aims to produce a catalog that balances grip, warm-up and predictability. How quickly manufacturers and contracted riders convert private test mileage into usable race setups will shape early competitiveness next year. With only a handful of full-time riders cleared to test initially, the coming weeks will reveal which teams and riders gain the most from early Pirelli exposure, and which may be left playing catch-up. Across the Balaton Grand Prix weekend, Acosta emerged as KTM's standout performer, running at the sharp end from the opening sessions and converting that pace into a front-row qualifying slot. Beirer pointed out that Acosta's result was not a one-off. It reflected sustained speed and clean execution across practice, qualifying, the sprint, and the feature race. If Pedro is fighting for the win with Marc Márquez in both races and they both finished 10 seconds ahead of third place in Sunday's race, that deserves all the recognition. A rider who is fast from the outset and error-free across a full weekend demonstrates both raw pace and racercraft, two traits teams prize when assessing long-term potential. Beirer singled out qualifying as a decisive factor. Securing a front-row start, he argued, gave Acosta strategic options and the best chance to contest the leaders from the first corner. The KTM director credited the rider and team for extracting a clean Q2 performance without mistakes. Getting the bike on the front row helped a lot. If you're already on the front row of the grid, you simply have more options. On circuits where overtaking is costly, qualifying position often dictates race outcome. Strong one-lap pace is therefore a direct contributor to podium chances. Perhaps the most notable praise came for Acosta's temperament when dueling with Marquez. Beirer emphasized that Acosta combined maximum speed with calm decision-making, avoiding errors while pushing at the limit. That balance, aggression tempered by control, impressed KTM's leadership. He rode 2 races with maximum speed and maximum composure simultaneously, without making a single mistake in the duel with Marc. That was very impressive. Young riders often show raw speed but lack race maturity. Maintaining composure under pressure is a key indicator of a rider ready for consistent top-level results. Beirer praised Acosta's race management in the closing stages, noting the rider's ability to recognize when to keep attacking and when to consolidate a strong result. That situational awareness, knowing when second place is the optimal outcome, marked another step in his maturation. He also had the speed to match Marc Márquez and the composure to understand at the right moment that second place was the best possible result. Choosing points over risk is a hallmark of championship-caliber thinking. Accumulating consistent high finishes often outweighs occasional all-or-nothing gambles. With teammates struggling at Balaton, Acosta stood out as KTM's benchmark rider, increasingly viewed inside the paddock as one of the factory's leading prospects. Beirer's comments underlined the team's confidence in Acosta's trajectory and his growing role as a reference point for KTM's development. In my opinion, Pedro's GP at Mugello was one of his best performances to date. Balaton represented a further step. When a young rider becomes the yardstick for a factory, it accelerates their influence on bike setup and team strategy, and raises expectations for future results. Pit Beirer's endorsement frames Pedro Acosta's Balaton weekend as a milestone, not just a strong result, but proof of composure, qualifying acumen and race intelligence. If Acosta continues to combine raw speed with the measured decision-making he showed against Marquez, he looks set to become a consistent frontrunner for KTM and a genuine title contender in the seasons ahead. Steiner challenged the core justification for the proposal, cost reduction, calling the projected savings tiny and unclear. He argued that garages would still require the same number of spare parts and personnel, because a second machine would simply be stored disassembled rather than ready to ride. Perhaps I'm too dense to understand it, But I don't know what savings there are in having one or two motorcycles. Cost-cutting measures must be weighed against operational realities. If spares and manpower remain largely unchanged, headline savings may evaporate. Steiner warned the rule would blunt MotoGP's entertainment value, removing dramatic visuals and moments that resonate on social media and with casual viewers. He placed fans at the center of his argument, insisting any regulatory change should prioritize spectator appeal. We are taking the spectacle away from the fans. Who is the most important part of any sport? The fans. Spectacle drives engagement, sponsorship, and broadcast interest. Regulators must balance financial aims with the sport's entertainment product. One of Steiner's biggest concerns is the potential end of flag-to-flag races, where riders switch bikes when weather changes, a sequence he described as one of MotoGP's most iconic moments. He pointed to the viral impact of those scenes and argued their loss would be a backward step for the championship. What's cooler than a rider jumping from one bike to another when it starts to rain? Moments that create shareable highlights can be disproportionately valuable for the sport's global profile and fan growth. Steiner outlined the logistical consequences. If a crash occurs, mechanics would need to rebuild a disassembled spare under time pressure, increasing workload and complexity rather than reducing it. He suggested the rule could create more work, not less, and questioned why manufacturers would support a measure that weakens the spectacle. If you crash, you still have to build a second bike. The difference is that now the bike is ready to use, and afterward it would be disassembled into 200 pieces. Operational efficiency and pit lane workflows are finely tuned. Rule changes that disrupt those processes can have unintended cost and safety implications. Rather than removing a second bike, Steiner proposed proven alternatives to reduce expenditure, introduce a budget cap, or simply cut the number of tests. He pointed to Formula One's budget cap as a working model and suggested fewer test days would directly lower costs without sacrificing race day spectacle. If you want to save money, the solution is very simple: a budget cap. Or do fewer tests. It's very easy. Cost control can be achieved through multiple levers. Choosing the right combination requires input from teams, manufacturers, and the sport's commercial stakeholders. Günther Steiner's intervention frames the one-bike debate as more than a technical tweak. It is a clash between cost engineering and the elements that make MotoGP compelling. His warnings about lost spectacle, logistical strain, and marginal savings add weight to calls for alternative measures such as budget limits or reduced testing. As rule makers refine the 2027 package, the paddock's reaction, and whether regulators prioritize spectacle or short-term savings, will determine whether MotoGP keeps the dramatic moments that define the sport. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!